Hi, I'm Quest and you're watching Creativity Over Quality. I'm going to show you how I make a leather bracer with a pattern carved motif. And for this project I have chosen the Roma wheel, which I will talk a little bit more about later. You can of course choose whatever pattern or motif you want. It's entirely up to you. Let's do the thing. I start off by tracing the pattern. It is important that the leather is wet for the imprint to take. You don't need to push very hard, but it is important to keep your paper very still. You can of course use something to keep it in place, like tape or a weight or something like that, but just holding it seems to work for me. I use a ballpoint pen and paper because I can see where I've traced and where I have not, and it makes a good impression on the leather. You can also of course use a stylus and tracing film and whatever works for you. When I carve, it's important to use sharp tools. Here I'm strapping my swivel knife with some leather and strpping paste. The depth of the cut is about 1/3 of the leather's thickness. I'm using a tilted blade for my swivel knife since it makes it easier for me to get around sharp corners and whatnot. Stamping. Here I'm using a large beveler going around the edges. I try to be as consistent as possible to make a smooth bevel on the project. When doing the vine, I sneak up next to the cut on both sides instead of putting the tool right in the cut as I normally do. This pulls the leather apart and creates a wider cut. I use a drop-shaped backgrounder for the space between the spokes of the wheel. I don't really know what this tool is called, but I call it a pearl stamp. I think it creates a nice effect, like a flower or a berry on the vine. Cutting. Time to cut the project out. I use a hole punch for the rounded inner corners, as it makes it easier to reach in a way you can't do really with a sharp blade. Edge beveling and sanding. To make the edges rounder, first off I use an edge beveler. There is still a little bit of a sharp edge, so I will use a drum sander on my rotary tool to make it nice and smooth. Here I'm using an oblong hole punch to make holes for the straps to run through, and a tiny little hole for the Browne stud. Here I'm doing some edge treatment. Just soak the edges down and go over it with an edge slicker. Mine is initially made for a Dremel, but there is a bunch of different models out there and either one is fine. Before I paint with black dye, I like to wet the leather so it doesn't bleed or blotch out. I then paint the edges, the spaces between the spokes and the insides of all the holes. These are going to be dyed black. Then I just smack some gel antique all over the place. It's fine, I promise. I know it's not the way to use gel antique, but it works. Then I wipe off the excess and finish with some buffing with a damp cloth. Now we finally get to the main motif. It is inspired by the flag of the Roma people. The flag is a red wheel on a blue and green bottom, representing the sky and the land respectively. The wheel is for the road that we travel, and the red is for the blood that binds us all together. I am, however, using gold acrylic leather paint, because I think it's pretty. Putting in the Browne stud, I use a little contact cement and tighten it as much as I can. Here I'm measuring where to put the hole. I'll make a little mark with the scratching hole, punch the hole, and paint the edges. Oh, you thought we were done? Oh no, now comes the fun part, more edge treatment. This is gum Trac that I use as a burnishing agent. I use it as a finish on all the edges, and I go over them with the edge slicker once again. The light caressing is an important part of the process. And the final step is to soften it up with some leather fat. And we're done! I'm sorry for the shaky presentation video. We are going to get a cheese plate real soon, I promise. If you want to do something similar or copy it straight off, the artwork and pattern is available for free on our Patreon page. And if you think you could have done it better, please tell us how in the comment section. As we say in our hometown, ha det gott, hej!